do you find that there are any differences in working with an older actor versus working with a younger actor?
Oh yeah, sure. Older actors, older actors seem to be better at listening usually, which is interesting to me. But younger actors tend to be able to learn lines faster. That doesn't tend to be a problem. It can be. Certainly, age doesn't have that much to do with it, but sometimes it does. But so I see a lot of that. The biggest thing for older actors that I've seen, and I'll just mention this because I think it needs to be heard. You know, literally 100% of all auditions since the pandemic have been on self-tape. Before the pandemic, probably 20% were on self-tape. So it was already becoming a thing, right? Now it's been 100% for so long, and it's going to stay 100%, I think, even after the pandemic's over, at least for first call, right? Callbacks, maybe they'll do in person at some point, but they can see so many more people this way and blah, blah, blah. But older people are having real issues with doing self-tapes and uploading them and all the technical stuff that's required. Yeah. It's not their thing. And I'm talking about people that are older than me. There are some. Mm-hmm. So that's a big problem for them because I heard a lady stand up in a SAG-AFTRA national board meeting, and she was a guest, but she was a really working actress. You knew who she was, you know, and she said, "I'm leaving the industry because I just can't do these self-tapes." Again, this was before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. But a lot of auditions were already starting to go that route. And so that and it's too bad because they also overstep, I think, with actors, even young actors, because they ask you to do all these different kinds of shots. And sometimes they'll even say, you know, and we want to use this footage as a part of the show or some stuff like that. And it's not okay. You know, you're suddenly expected to be a cameraman and a gaffer and, you know, and sound and everything. So yeah, off track. You know me, I'm just going to go and go off.
What is the most rewarding part of your work?
When someone gets better, when someone does a really good job with something, I get it out of acting in class. When I see them put up a scene and they you know, they take the notes and it just soars. And I mean, that's a rush for me. Same with being on set. It's different because on set there's more pressure, and you step in between takes and talk to the cast, and you only have maybe 20 seconds to 40 seconds usually between takes. And so I have very little I can say. I hold my minis, like I have the script, right? And it comes in what are called minis, they're sides. And they look like that on inside, and it's just a script. And then I'll sit there and follow it, and then I'll circle the line that they said. Hopefully I'll remember what the note was. And as soon as they say cut, I have like 20, 30, 40 seconds to say what I need to say to them. And they can't look at me first. They have to look at the director first, or the directors get mad. So when the director says cut, I tell the actors they have to, make sure you remember when they say cut, look at the director first. See what they have. If they have something to say, listen to them. If they don't, then you can look over to me, and then I'll tell you what I need to tell you. But that to me, and then when they do it again, when they do another take, and it works and it's really good, and then they say cut, and the actor looks at me and goes, yeah, that's awesome. That's great.
If I am not mistaken, or if memory serves me, you started as a kid actor too, correct?
I'm sure, because I mean, not like you, but I did.
Oh, you were out there in the trenches.
Well,
I think I've seen some of your headshots from when you were, I think, our Little League days.
Little League days, that's right. Well, we played Little League together, you and I have to just say that, so it's now on the record. What team was that? Was it the Twins?
Orioles. With your brother, Steven.
Ah, right. That's right. The Orioles. Oh, didn't even know they were from Baltimore.
Are you still acting at all?
No, I'm really not.
No interest?
So well, no, I won't say that. I act for an audience of me. I don't want to go senile any sooner than I have to. So I've taken about 2 years ago, I started learning monologues and poetry. I have the Raven down, 18 verses, buddy, 18. Okay, I'm just saying.
That's a lot of verses.
It is, and they're long verses. Anyway, it's kept me going, and I really enjoy it. I've learned some really wonderful Shakespeare speeches that in all my time working, I never really learned.
What's a character that you'd like to play?
Oh, still, well, that I could play. I mean, I ain't gonna play Hamlet no more. I would love to play. I think I probably could still do Richard III, but I'm getting pretty close to Lear. So it just depends. My dream role has always been Richard III. I've always wanted to play that, and I've only started learning speeches from it recently, just for the fun of it.
When you were acting, what were the first thing that you did to research and approach a role?
I'd read the play 2 or 3 times, or the screenplay. That's almost always the first thing I'll do, is read it at least twice, and then I would break it down. And a lot of times you hear that in acting classes or whatever, or the director will say, break down the script, or actors will say it. I have yet to find a universal definition of breaking down the script. For me, breaking down the script is asking 4 basic questions. What's the objective? That is, what my character wants. In my class, it has to be said in 5 words or less, if possible. I want the girl, I want the job, I want the money. First 2 are I want. Second one is what's the obstacle? What's an obstacle? What's getting in the way? Identify obstacles. There can be more than one, but there's usually only one objective. And it's also usually what you want from the person you're talking to. And then the third one is stakes. That is not like a prime rib or whatever. It's like a stake through the heart. What's at stake? If you don't get your objective, if the obstacle wins, whatever, and you don't get it, what's going to happen? It should be bad. I find myself telling actors to raise the stakes a lot on set. And then the fourth one is, I call it do. A lot of people have better words. I like simplicity. Do. What are you going to do in the scene to try to get your objective? And I tell actors you should have 2 or 3 do's, 2 or 3 things during a scene that you are going to do to try to get your objective. Right. And so that's the first part of breaking down a script for me, is those 4 questions.
What things do you think an actor can do to stand out amidst all the incredible competition that's out there?
Honestly, I mean, there's only so much that an actor can do. I think, I mean, it sounds trite, but be good. And being good, people think, oh, I'm good. I'm a good actor. I'm a good actor. And I'm just like, what are you basing this on? How hard have you worked to be good? And I look at actors and, like, here, I'll drop a good name, right? Jason Momoa, who is now really, really famous.
Yeah.
But when he was young, he was a really pretty face, and body to go with it. And I coached him. I coached him on Baywatch, and I mean the whole series all the way through 22 episodes. And I coached him. I mean, that whole season. I coached him on a Baywatch movie that we did together, which was, more. And then I coached him on a TV show called North Shore, which was a Fox show, and another 22 or so episodes. So I worked with him quite a lot. And I was actually brought on to North Shore specifically for Jason. That was not the case on Baywatch, but anyway, I got to know him, and he was doing other series at the time too. He was doing that Stargate or something, and then he got Conan, I remember. But and he came to my class, and he came to, and then I coached him, daily. And people are like, Yeah, he's a pretty boy and he got famous, you know. I really, yeah, he did. He definitely capitalized on his looks for sure. I mean, you look like that, and obviously that's a huge help. But, and I mean this, but Jason had a lot of issues, not a lot, a couple, but they were good issues or bad issues. But Jason, you can never say, nobody can tell me Jason did not work hard. He worked hard and he partied hard, but he worked hard. And when he wasn't training with me, he would be on the off season. He'd be in class in LA, and he trained with different teachers, and he kept getting better and kept booking work. And I grant you that his looks played a big part. But I'll tell you something, he looked just as good in Conan as he did in Aquaman, and Conan was a bust. He was okay. He didn't do a terrible job. I didn't see the movie, but I saw some clips. And but his acting wasn't as good as it kept getting. He just keeps getting better, and he keeps working on it. And you know, I mean, partying can take away from that, I think, but you know, you can't substitute anything for hard work, and a lot of actors don't. And I'm sorry, but I see it so much in class. I see the ones that do, and then I see the ones that don't. And a lot of times the ones that don't are expecting that things should just go their way. And, you know, just being pretty doesn't do it. I think, you know, as pretty as Jason is, I don't know if he would have hit the way he did.
How did Jason hit the way he did? What do you attribute to his incredible success?
His looks. No.
Certainly is a part of it, yeah.
His looks, I'll tell you exactly.
But not you need more than that, though.
Right. His looks opened the doors. Mm-hmm. His looks definitely did that. But his work is what. So he's booking these shows where he's just a pretty boy, Baywatch, North Shore, you know, whatever. Even Stargate, he was pretty badass looking. I saw pictures. But then he had an audition for, what was it called? Game of Thrones. He had done Conan, I think, already. And it was like nothing. It was a flop, right? And he wanted to get cast on this Game of Thrones. And for the audition, he did the Haka, which is it's actually from Australia, and
yeah, I think I've seen that. Yeah,
but a lot of Hawaii has adopted the Haka and does it because there's so many people from those islands too, and so the Haka is pretty big at University of Hawaii, where Jason went, and so he had picked that up, and basically he thought it worked really well for this character of Khal Drago, or whatever the character's name was. And he did that for the audition, and they said that totally sealed it. They loved him from that, and he booked the part. So to me, he didn't get it from his looks, not that one. Mm-hmm. His looks didn't hurt, clearly, but they wanted the badass, and he brought that.
He brought a choice that showed them what booked him the work.
Exactly. And a choice is something that is the outcome. It's the creation of all his time training and his experience working and stuff. All those things went into him to enable him to make a choice, especially a choice like that, which was who does that? Mm-hmm. Right. But the people that do that are the people that book parts. Mm-hmm. So, my advice to an actor is, when you find the role that you really believe you must have because you can bring something special to it, then you have to do something special to get it.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of work, how do you hustle up work for yourself? You have your class, that's one thing, but you mentioned these shows. How do you get into that group of acting teachers that are called to do these shows, and do you wait for the call, or do you do some proactive
things to
yeah
I no, I should say no, not yeah, because I don't nearly enough, and I should. But because I'm living now in Portland, there's just not that much production. I don't even really want to drive to Seattle to work, So that's like 3 hours, I think. So shows that shoot in Portland, or shows that shoot in Hawaii, because I do have places I could stay there. So because I lived there so long. I would there's one show in the last 5 years, I think, that I applied for in Hawaii and didn't get, or at least I don't know. They haven't started shooting it yet, so it's a new one, but they're going to be using a lot of local actors. So I thought,
you find out about shows and then you apply for them.
If in fact, that would be the thing I should do. Yes,
and applying is just sending them your resume or calling them and
yeah.
following up on the resume you sent them, or.
Yeah, not really. It's kind of like acting. I just submit the resume. I have with the resume, I have a couple of letters of recommendation from executive producers. A couple of them that have said such wonderful things. That Harry Bring, may he rest in peace, was a producer of extraordinary ability, and he just passed away last year suddenly. But he was doing what was the one, CSI? Is it that one? One of those big shows that just ended, but it was on for like 15 years or something. Anyway, Criminal Minds, that's what it was. Criminal Minds. He was a executive producer. But he also was a producer of like Melrose Place and all these other shows. He did North Shore with me. And he wrote a letter that says from him saying, I didn't want to hire a coach because, the last thing I wanted to do was add crew. But I found that Scott was able to help me hire more local actors because we're in Hawaii. So I didn't have to fly as many out. And he actually saved more than his weekly salary by saving on the production that much money. So, which was a great thing to see. And it's just a great reason, because producers, they don't want to hire somebody they don't have to hire, you got to have a reason. I got brought on for Jason Momoa on one show because they couldn't understand him. Because he's got lips the size of Cleveland. So he, and he was having trouble. He wasn't enunciating. And there's an example of his work ethic, right? I was brought on the show. I said, okay, first thing, you got to do some tongue twisters. And I gave him like 3 pretty hard ones. One of them was big blue, badly bleeding blisters. And because, he needed a little bit of that. And he came back the next day. He said, okay, I want 3 more. And I said, no, you have to get these down. You have to really get them down first. And he said, I got them down. And I said, no, not in one day. Come on, let me hear it. Let me hear it. And I was like, whoa, you did get them down. Because I heard him when he was learning and he didn't have them at all, but he worked his butt off. And that's what he does, And so I gave him 3 more. He had them like 2 days later. And then within a week, I had the editors coming up and saying, what did you do? Because it's working. And they're it's a lot clearer. They were actually talking about if we can't fix it, we're going to have to replace him. And this is all before he was anybody, that like he is now. But they were actually talking about replacing him because of that. And, that's crazy. So again, it wasn't his looks, it was his work ethic that saved the job for him.
You're a former actor, current acting coach.
Yes, sir.
Why are you not in LA? What made you decide to, was it
because I don't have
Hawaii
to
first and then Seattle? I mean, what was the impetus for these moves?
Well, no, I never lived in Seattle. I mean, not since I was a baby. I moved to Portland though, yeah, and that was only about 5 years ago, maybe 6, almost 6.
Your first move from LA was Hawaii?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I took a job for 2 years in Guam, which we don't have to count. I was an
acting coach.
Well, no, I was although I did teach classes. I made sure that I was actually doing some classes while I was doing this other job. So I have taught acting in Guam, but I was the entertainment director for nobody understands this because nobody's been to Guam, right? Mostly, but it's they have one street that's kind of like Rodeo Drive, and all the Japanese tourists come and they think they're in America. They consider it to be like going to America, but it's much, much, much closer. So they just fly, a couple hours and they're in boom, and they're in Guam, and they have the hotels, they have the Planet Hollywood and the Hyatt and the Hilton and all the Gucci stores and all those kinds of things. But it's all on one street. The rest of the island is third world completely. Okay. But down in Tumon Bay, right on the bay there on that one street, it's like gold. And so there was a showroom, and I literally was in charge of this $2 million a year show with tigers and lions and motorcycles and magicians. I mean, it's just this huge thing. And I really didn't do anything. The show was already open when I got there and still running when I left. So all I did was bring in replacements and give notes every night and eat dinner. They served dinner for the dinner show, so I could have like lobster every night if I wanted it. And so yeah, so that was the job. It was like really cush and easy. And yeah, so I was there for 2 years. Otherwise, yeah, Hawaii's been it, Maui and Oahu. And my daughter was born on Maui. Both my kids were raised on Maui and Oahu.
So other than it being a beautiful place, why did you move there in the first place?
Because my dad used to do shows there. And so we lived there like half the year when I was growing up. And I always loved it and always intended to move back. And I wanted to find a job there and couldn't. And it was always hard. And finally, when I was on my way back from Guam, I was like, you know what, we're just going to go and I'm going to make it work and we're going to just see. And I started talking to people. I opened up a school for acting that year and never looked back. I booked Baywatch shortly after. That helped.
Baywatch shot in Hawaii?
Yeah. Baywatch Hawaii, sorry. Yeah. And then that immediately made me a presence there, and I was able to pick up students. And
do you have any role models as acting coaches? Like if you were to emulate another acting coach's career, is there anyone that
I don't know of any acting coaches' careers, really. There was a teacher, you asked me about teachers that I might have trained with, and there was another one that I didn't mention, and his name is Glenn Cassell. And he's not much of a teacher, and I don't mean that as an insult, but I mean he's much more prolific as a director. But I was fortunate enough to take acting class with him a couple of times, and he I feel like I approach things very similar to him, and at least what I remember from so long ago, and so I felt like that was a real influence on what I teach. But everything else has been really what I get from my students that shaped me as a teacher. Really has,
Mm-hmm.
Keep shaping me. Keep shaping me. I mean, I think about my classes, and I have like students that have been with me for 5, 7, geez, I got a couple that have been longer than that, years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then some that have been with me for 5 days. And I mean, it's so challenging and it's so diverse. I can't imagine, not having a great time doing it. It's the best job in the world. People say, they'd say acting coach on a TV show, that's like 14-hour days, right? And I'm like, yeah, it is. And they're long. And they go, God, that sounds like such hard work. And I'm like, oh, no, don't confuse it with that. It's not hard work at all. It's really long and tiring sometimes. But digging ditches is hard work.
Right.
You're treated like a king and you have as much food as you can eat. And, so yeah, no, it's not. It's the best job in the world.
How long do you think it takes? And, I don't know if there's an exact answer for this, but how long does it take for one to become a good actor? I was talking to a friend of mine that's a singer, and she has been singing with she has been with her same vocal coach for about 20 years, and she's a professional singer. She does shows out live and stuff, but she just feels that she still continues to get something from them. How does that work for actors and acting coaches?
Yeah,
People
it's the
tend to
same.
stay with you for like long periods of time? You kind of mentioned a little about the actors 5 or 6 years, but
No. I mean, I have 10 years, a couple of actors that have been with me for 10 years. I have one actor that still takes my class, but he also teaches one of my classes for me. He teaches my Saturday class in Hawaii, the foundation class there. And he's literally, I mean, I met him on a TV show. I coached him. And I was working for the show though, so I just coached him as the day player of the day, and then he was really good, and I noticed he was good, and then they brought him back later in the season, and he played a completely different character, but he was a good enough actor that they just wanted to use him, so I coached him again, and then he started training with me, and that was 20 years ago. And now he teaches my, like I said, my Saturday class, my foundation class, and he also sits in on other classes. He doesn't put a lot of work up, but he's busy doing other stuff. But I mean, you know, I have a number of actors that have been with me for a long, long time. And the thing is, you should be with your coach as long as you're learning and getting better. That's all. And whether that's a year or that's 20 years, you know, as long as they can help you be better, why would you leave? It makes no sense. And the same is true. Why would you stay if you don't notice concretely that you're getting better, that specific things are happening that make you better? You worked on this scene, and I mean daily. If you're not getting that from a teacher, if you put up work, you should learn from that. And if you don't every single time, then you're probably in the wrong class. Certainly, you know. So,
is talent more important than training?
Or
are they equal, or is training more important than talent?
Great question, Mark. You know, they both have their place. What talent will do is it'll get you jobs, but if you don't have, it's hard. It's a hard question. You're asking which is more important, talent or
training.
Training. I think really. So, like I said, talent will get you jobs. I think training will get you a career.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
When you get a character to play that is not within your comfort zone, then you start to be like, well, this could be a problem. And so what training is, what my class is, I tell my students, is a place you come to fail. And if you're not failing, then you're not doing it right. Because if you're only doing stuff you know you do well, then you're not expanding your comfort zone. And you certainly can't expand your comfort zone at work. That's not good. You want to work within your comfort zone. Okay. So you want to do roles that you're already confident you could do well. That's why in class, you want to bring in things you don't know you can do well, things that scare you, things that you're like, I don't know if I could just cry in this scene, or I don't know if, I don't feel comfortable with rage, and losing my temper. I don't know if I could really do whatever it is that you don't know. That's what you should be doing in class so that you do know, right? So you can do it on the workplace, because you can't experiment on set. I mean, you have to do what you know works. I think Sandy Meisner said that. I'm not quoting him exactly, but he said something to that effect. He also, you asked me a second ago, how long does it take for an actor to get good? Sandy Meisner was asked that question, and I'll use his answer because I believe it. He said 30 years, I think. Which, if you think, how long does it take to get a black belt? How long does it take to become an expert at anything? So doesn't mean you can't work right away. You can. But you're not going to necessarily do Hamlet, and do a great job at it. And I think as long as, but you can start at any time. I had a great student that came to me to train, and he was like 65 when he came to me. And he had never acted a day in his life, never even had any thoughts about being an actor. He was an attorney, a very successful attorney in Honolulu. And Buck Ashford is his name. God bless him. And he came and he said, he was really personable, but a little old guy, right? And he's like, what? I'm getting to be his age practically. Shit. And he said, I want to be an actor. And I was like, really? Okay, how come? What's he said? I want to be in a movie, and I want to act, and I want to learn it. So I'm coming to you. And I said, well, that's great. I would love to have you. That's, he was the oldest student I think I had. And at that point anyway. And I said, why did you, come to me now? Why are you doing this? And he looked at me and he said, you want the truth? And I said, Buck, I always want the truth. And he said, well, the doctor gave me 5 years to live. Hmm. And this is on my bucket list. And this is before bucket list was a thing. Mm-hmm. And I looked at him and I mean, my heart just dropped. What do you do when somebody says that to you, Mm-hmm. About 5 years, Jesus. And you want to take acting classes? Really? I mean, wow. He trained with me, long story short. He was awesome. Mm-hmm. He was well-spoken and everything from being an attorney. I'm sure he was a smart guy. So he could speak, public speak, but he had an imagination that was like a little kid's. And I've yet to have someone with as rich an imagination walking in the door as him. He just could become anything because he just believed it. He let himself go and he'd play and he'd pretend. Mm-hmm. And he lived another 10 years. Literally he was in the hospital and I was talking to him on the phone a few days before he passed. And he was telling me about this trip he had planned. He had already bought a sailboat in like the Canary Islands and sailed it back from there to Hawaii with a crew of people and stuff. He lived life like no one I ever saw. But I don't know why I went off on the Buck Ashford tangent. Shoot. Just because he started so late. He started so late, but so what? I helped him get into a film. I cast him in a couple of plays, and then he worked for other directors. I mean, he really did a bunch of acting and just kept going. It was awesome,
Well, not in any reference to him, but most actors, do you find that they are pursuing this career because they want to do substantial and meaningful work that will hopefully change society and the world, or for the sound of applause and fame and all that kind of thing?
Yeah. I mean, you see both. You really do see both. And I try and be, a voice of reason and explain things the way that I see it anyway. But I definitely see my share of both. I think the ones I see more actors that are serious.